Alright, now that we have the main pieces of the dark chamber build, I want to start to add in those finishing touches. Today I'm going to begin by putting in some grime. I'll show you what I'm going to do there. It's mostly going to be multiple layers of dry brushing, various shades of browns and greens. I'll start with the stair piece here because it offers kind of a little bit of everything. I have a wall here. Again, if this is sitting on a floor, coming up from the floor, you're going to have grime sort of blending into the side here. Anywhere there's going to be a seam, so each of these stairs, there's going to be dirt and dust and grime collecting in those places. I don't imagine our inhabitant has any housekeeping, so just think about where dirt would collect if, nobody were sweeping up. Think about where water might be as well. Moisture might collect. I'm going to start off with a little bit of this Craft Smart Spanish olive. I could go right to the olive if I was just kind of in a hurry, but I'm actually running low on this. So these are pretty close. This is slightly lighter. This is the brush I'm going to go with, something with kind of a little bit of more of a stiff but wide bristle head. And as I said, this will just be a combination of dry brush layers. Starting off with a very light green, preferably something in the olives. Load the brush, remove most of the paint, very dry. And I'm just going to go in anywhere there's a seam here on these stairs and start to dry brush in. I'll start at the corner and kind of pull out towards the stair. Pull up from that seam as well. And already you can see, maybe it's starting to take on a green hue there. This isn't a dramatic shift to the green. I'm going to go cover pretty much a lot of the step and up the side here with that. Sort of unevenly brushing. And there I have laid in some green, if you can see that comparative. It's not super drastic. I'll do each of those steps just like that. Very, very dry brush. Anywhere there's a seam or a gap. Adding some of that light green. Okay, there I've added all the green around there and around this piece, which I kind of did around the edge in case if it is used, as I said, like a dais, then it would be along that wall. It doesn't matter either way. And then the two base pieces are really strongly along this seam, and anywhere there was a crack or a big chunk out of the floor, I did the same thing. That's where I imagine, again, moisture might collect and grow different molds and things. Now, this looks great like it is. Just adding this green is enough character. You could be done. That's all you need to do. And I'd be very happy with it. But I kind of want to take it to the next level. I'm going to keep using that same olive green. Again, I'm using a Spanish olive, but any sort of lighter olive green is great. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of this raw sienna to that, and that's going to start pulling it toward the oranges and browns. Very little bit. I'm just going to slightly change that shade to the brown a little bit, mixing it with that olive. And I'll go back through and dry brush all those same areas, except that I'm not going to come out as far. So if this olive comes out to say here, I'll come out about 2/3 of the way, a little bit heavier and maybe a little bit more unevenly as well, but hitting all the same areas, just leaving sort of a fringe of that first layer of green out there so that I'm creating a blending effect. And let's see, I'll do it here on the side so you can really see it. Pull at the base of things. I start at the bottom and pull up. Also, I had this big chunk out right here, so I imagine that water might collect and run down the wall right there, so I have it kind of coming down from there. But you may be able to see that I'm just shifting just the bottom part of what I originally had done toward the brown. It's a little bit more yellow. It's fading up. Hard for the camera to pick up a lot of this, but again, I'll go through all the pieces and do that paint shade now. Okay, I've done all that again. I'm still not sure you're going to see a huge difference, but I really can. This is, I just, towards the center of everything. So the light green is still on the edges, and then a little bit closer, I've got that raw sienna, and I am going to do another layer now. I'm using, so I still have that same olive and raw sienna mix here. I'm going to keep using that paint. I'm just going to start adding more and more amounts of brown. I really like the dark chocolate or like a burnt umber, which I'm almost out of, or the Craft Smart Espresso. These are the darker browns. I'll go with the dark chocolate today, but very tiny bit to start off with, just a couple of drops. You see there, mix that in, and now I essentially have that same color, but just a little bit darker and a little bit more brown. Using the same brush, not even cleaning it. And I'll go back through now and dry brush all those same areas, but where I went to here, up to here maybe with that olive, and I went here to the olive, and I only went up to about here with that raw sienna mix. Now I'm going to keep this mix, this new one, only about maybe 2/3 or a half of that. So keep this very low. I'm making a gradiated, I'm doing some gradation here with the color. And I'll go through and hit all the same places again. This is almost more of an overbrush than a dry brush, really. I'm really putting on a little bit more paint now, because I want to begin to really darken that up. And you may be able to see the difference from here to here, what I've done now. And I'll go do all the pieces. All right, it's coming along very nicely. And now the tricky bit, and this requires a very supple touch. I am, for the last one, going to add just a little bit of black to this. Now I'm talking, I'm going to put in the smallest drip possible. Seems like a ridiculously small amount, but black will turn this way too dark way too quickly. So just a drop of black. If I like it, I keep it. If I need more, I add more. So it needs another drop. Okay, so again, essentially it's the same color, just darker. It's a very deep brownish olive now. And just as careful with the black, I'm going to be also careful with the dry brushing. Again, still using the same brush. I have not even cleaned it yet. Doesn't even matter. I'm blending all of these colors anyway. Load the brush up, remove most of the paint, and this is going to be just right down, right at the very bottom, right in the cracks of things, very carefully pulling up from the bottom on these bottom edges of things. This just goes right at the bottom. I barely even pull it up the wall very far at all. So as I said, when I'm finished, I have a gradiated color scheme, starting with a very light green, working its way down to this dark brown green here at the bottom. I also go up the edge a little bit here. Water may run down the edge of things. And there is what we're looking at. I'm very pleased with that. I'll go and do all the pieces. And there we have it. Everything all grimy and looking rather gross and gruesome and dank. I feel like I can actually smell the moisture in the air just looking at it. And that's how I do grime, which, by the way, is easily my favorite thing about my craft, is adding in the muck and murk. Come on back and we'll continue on the dark chamber build tomorrow.